Okay, I want to try a little experiment to kick things off. I want you to close your eyes for a second, unless you're driving, obviously. Please don't do that. And just think about Roald Dahl. What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Oh, that's easy. It's the chocolate river, right?
That chocolate river.
A golden ticket. It's that feeling of whimsy, but with just enough danger to make it exciting. You know, the good kids winning out over the awful adults.
Exactly. That's the version we all grew up with. We see Dahl as this master of the modern fairy tale. But what if I told you that we've been reading him completely wrong?
Wrong in a very specific way.
What if Charlie and the Chocolate Factory wasn't a fairy tale at all, but a warning label?
A blueprint, even. We're looking at a transcript from Ranger.
Okay.
Behind the Curtain, Chapter 12, by a J.M. Britton. And the central idea here is going to sound, well, a little wild at first.
Just a little.
It argues that Dahl's work is actually a coded description of modern tyranny, of transhumanist traps, and the deep mechanics of psychological trauma.
Yeah. It basically claims that Willy Wonka is a prophecy.
It does. And that Miss Trunchbull from Matilda is the single most accurate depiction of a totalitarian state ever put to paper.
I have to admit, when I first started reading this, I thought, okay, here we go, down the conspiracy rabbit hole. But the more I read, the more, I don't know, uncomfortable I got.
Because it starts to fit.
It fits frighteningly well. And this isn't just literary analysis. The text weaves it all together. Sociology, a really brutal memoir of domestic abuse. And then right when you think you've got a handle on it, it just veers into this high-concept metaphysical physics.
It's a dense one today. We're going to explore how childhood trauma might, in a strange way, be a training ground for surviving the end of the world. And we're going to talk about a technology called Mobius.
And that, frankly, changes how you look at reality itself. But before we get to the physics of escaping reality, we have to understand the trap we're apparently living in. So the source introduces us to two characters, 87, who's this eccentric mentor figure.
And Grace, a young woman who is trying to process a really horrific past. But 87 isn't just offering her, tea and sympathy.
No.
He's deprogramming her. He's stripping away all that nostalgia to show her the gears working underneath. And he starts by dismantling probably the most beloved figure in all of children's literature, Willy Wonka.
This part really caught me off guard. 87 looks at Wonka and doesn't see a fun candy man.
He sees an archetype.
So how does he frame it?
Well, think about it from his perspective. He describes Wonka as a very successful, eccentric businessman. He's childlike, sure, but he's also a ruthless capitalist.
The absolute best in his field.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's developing these technologies that look like magic to the public. He's isolated, he's powerful, and he plays by his own set of rules. It's implying that Dahl didn't just guess. He tapped into something.
Like a recurring pattern.
That's the key. 87 suggests this isn't coincidence. He uses the word scripted. Yeah. The implication is that these archetypes, the Wonka, the Musk, they recur throughout history because they serve a specific function. They're part of the simulation, if you will.
The script of reality.
Yes. And look at the parallels the text points out. Wonka creates the great glass elevator.
Right, a glass house that literally launches people into space.
And 87 connects this directly to the modern obsession with Mars, with leaving Earth behind. Wonka even saves the country from aggressive aliens in the sequel, so he positions himself as a savior. But what's the cost?
This is where it gets dark.
This is where he points to Minus Land.
I remember Minus Land from the book.
Yeah.
It's where things get shrunk, isn't it?
In 87's analysis, Minus Land is the ultimate destination of this whole tech savior thing. He argues that figures like Wonka, they lure us with the promise of the future, of space, of the shiny new thing. But the result is that we end up trapped.
Trapped in a youthful avatar.
Shrunk down, living in a diminished, smaller reality.
That sounds a lot like a critique of the metaverse, doesn't it? Or even transhumanism.
Yeah.
The idea that you trade your messy physical self for a shiny digital one, but you lose your humanity in the process.
That is exactly the warning. It's the seductive face of tyranny. It looks like candy, it looks like fun, it looks like progress.
But it puts you in a smaller box.
A much smaller box. But the text then flips the coin. If Wonka is the seduction, Matilda is the brutality.
We have to talk about the Trunchbull.
The Trunchbull, right. Now, most of us, we seen her as this cartoonishly evil principal, a bad apple.
But 87 says no. Look closer. He calls her Miss Small Post and Ball, which, by the way, is just a fantastic insult. But his analysis of her tactics, That's what gave me chills.
It's the mechanism of her power. He points out that her behavior is so extreme, so brutish, that no reasonable adult would believe it to be true.
And that's the genius of it. It's the dictator's best camouflage.
Exactly. The child goes home and says, "The principal threw a girl over the fence by her pigtails." And what do the parents say?
Don't tell lies. That doesn't happen.
A principal wouldn't do that, because to believe the child means you have to acknowledge that the authority figure is a monster. And that's just too terrifying for most people to process.
So the sheer size of the crime provides the cover.
Precisely. It's a known tactic in authoritarian regimes. You commit atrocities that are just too big for the public to get their heads around, and they go into denial. It protects the tyrant.
And she uses fear, social pressure, public humiliation.
The whole playbook, the text even accuses her of murder. It claims she killed Magnus, the father figure, and then framed it as a suicide.
Which is rewriting history, the state controlling the narrative.
He took his own life. He was a traitor. It's all the same. But the most profound point 87 makes here is it's philosophical. You know the famous quote from Descartes, "I think, therefore I am."
Right, the foundation of individual consciousness.
87 argues that Trunchbull operates on a complete perversion of that. Her philosophy is, I say, therefore I am.
I say, therefore I am. Wow, that is heavy.
It's the total rejection of objective reality. It's replaced by enforced authority. If Trunchbull says you're guilty, then you are. Reality becomes whatever the person with the biggest stick says it is.
The ultimate gaslighting.
And it's terrifyingly relevant. It's the death of truth. And 87 connects this to another one of Dahl's books, one I'd never even heard of. Sometimes never.
It's a deep cut. Dahl's first novel.
It's post-apocalyptic. Humans wipe themselves out with nuclear war. And you'd think the monster of the story, this worm or parasite creature, would be happy about that.
But it's not. It's upset.
Because it feeds on humans. The text says it wanted to farm us. It wanted to consume us and our children to propagate itself.
Okay, so if we put all the pieces together here, Wonka seduces us into the farm with his technology. Trunchbull beats us into submission so we stay on the farm. And this parasite is the farm.
Essentially, yes. 87 is suggesting that there are systems of power, maybe even metaphysical ones, that just feed on human conflict and fear and suffering. He even says the reason society tries to ban books like Dahl's stories isn't really about bad language.
It's because they're getting too close to the truth.
Exactly. He says we haven't even scratched the surface of what these stories are really telling us. We ban them because subconsciously they remind us of the cage we're already in.
And this is where the transcript takes a very sharp, very painful turn. We move from the literary theory of tyranny to the practice of it. We shift to Grace's life.
It has to be jarring. I mean, you can talk about tyranny in the abstract all day, but seeing it in a living room, that's different. The text drops us right into a flashback. Grace is 8 years old.
And this isn't Miss Trunchbull anymore. This is her mother. The description is. It's visceral. Grace is on the floor, and her mother is forcing a bar of soap into her mouth.
It's brutal. Blood and ivory suds frothing up the back of her throat. But look at the analysis 87 provides. He doesn't just say, this is bad. He identifies what he calls the architecture of trauma.
It's not about the soap.
It's not about the soap or the bad word the child used. It's about the balloon of nails.
That metaphor is haunting.
It is. The text describes the mother not as a parent, but as this vessel filled with a buildup of rage and disappointment. He says to imagine a balloon just filled with sharp nails inflating and inflating inside her chest.
If she doesn't let the pressure out, she'll explode.
Right. So she uses the child as a pressure valve. The violence is just its emotional regulation for the parent. The child is collateral damage.
And the triggers are completely random. A missing book, a look, or just being like your father can never predict it.
Which creates a state of constant hypervigilance in the child. And as Grace gets older, the text notes that the violence shifts. It becomes verbal. And 87 actually argues that this is worse. He calls words poison.
He says, anger is a door to your heart through which monsters pass.
Such a crucial insight. He tells Grace that if she doesn't weed out the roots of those words, she'll become just like her mother. The abused becomes the abuser.
The cycle continues.
But there's a specific dynamic in this house that explains why it's so hard to leave these situations. The text calls it The inversion.
Right. The mother wasn't evil 100% of the time.
No, and that's the trap. She cooked healthy meals. She was obsessed with their education. If an outsider threatened them, she was a lioness. She would destroy anyone who hurt her children.
Except for herself.
Exactly. It creates this intense cognitive dissonance. The person who is your monster is also your protector. It just scrambles the signal in your brain.
So Grace had to become an expert at mental gymnastics.
Navigating emotional landmines. She had to hold two contradictory truths in her head at the same time. She loves me and she's destroying me. And here's the provocative thought 87 introduces this upbringing. It's actually training.
Training? For what?
For surviving a totalitarian state. Think about it. You have to learn to read the room instantly. You have to hide your true thoughts. You have to anticipate the leader's mood before they even speak. Grace was being trained in espionage, essentially, inside her own kitchen.
She was learning how to survive Trunchbull.
That's a bleak but kind of empowering way to see it. You're not just a victim, you're a survivor with a specialized skill set. And her escape route wasn't physical, it was mental.
She found air in books.
She latched onto great minds. She built a sanctuary in her imagination. And the mother hated it. The text says the mother was jealous of Grace's confidence, even her figure. She'd tell her, just wait until you turn 30, you'll lose it all.
It's so petty. It's exactly like the parasites wanting to feed.
But 87 just destroys this with logic. He points out how absurd it is. Because babies are born with confidence in a figure, he uses logic to defang the emotional abuse. He's teaching her, I think, therefore I am, to counter her mother's, I say, therefore I am.
So we have the trap Wonka and Trunchbull. We have the prison, the home, and the mother. Now, we need the jailbreak. We have to talk about Mobius.
This is the high-concept sci-fi part of the mission. Grace has developed this technique. The text stops just short of calling it magic. It frames it almost like advanced mathematics or physics.
It describes her entry process very specifically. It says she walls off her mind. She sinks into calculations, networks, and coordinates.
It feels like she's using the order of math to escape the chaos of her trauma.
Exactly. She visualizes the mortis locks of her mind, turning like a kaleidoscope. This isn't just daydreaming. She's inducing a dissociative, yet hyper-aware state.
An out-of-body experience.
She sees her own body lying on the bed. She sees a thin amethyst haze and a sheath around a cable. And then she drops the bombshell. String theory.
Right. And for anyone who might not be deep into theoretical physics, string theory basically says the fundamental parts of the universe aren't particles, but tiny vibrating strings.
And 87 connects this to the Einstein-Rosen bridge.
A wormhole. A shortcut through space-time. 87 calls Mobius a living tapestry. He implies that human consciousness, specifically a consciousness forged in the high-pressure cooker of trauma, can access these bridges.
Wait, so the trauma is the catalyst. The pressure creates the diamond.
That's the implication. The sheer intensity of her need to escape combined with her intellectual rigor, the math, the calculations, it allows her to punch a hole in the fabric of reality. She sinks into what the text calls the breathable depths of Mobius.
And she feels a call to come home.
That phrase, come home, it really stuck with me too. It suggests that this metaphysical space is her actual reality, and the physical world, the world of abuse and trunchbulls, that's the illusion.
Or at least it's just one layer.
Yeah.
And she's found the elevator to the next floor.
Yes. And the description of her movement in there is just beautiful. It says her speed and direction manifest as innovative music.
Physics becoming art.
In her house, her emotions are a liability, something to be crushed. In Mobius, her emotions create raw fractals. She creates light and structure just by existing. It's the ultimate reclamation of the self.
She goes from being a worm to be farmed to a creator of worlds. It's a stunning image, dancing like water and light. It feels like the ultimate victory over the balloon of nails.
And it ties everything together. The doll code warned us about the farm. The mother was the enforcer of the farm. And Mobius. Mobius is the realization that the farm doesn't actually exist if you just change your frequency.
Which brings us back to the core lesson 87 is trying to teach her. It's a line that I think defines this entire deep dive. He says, there are few things more powerful than the stories we tell ourselves.
That's the takeaway. Whether it's the story the tyrant tells you, I say, therefore I am, or the story the victim tells themselves, I am broken, those stories dictate the physical structure of our lives.
They build the prison walls.
They build the prison walls. But the source material is arguing that we have the power to rewrite that script. We can change the channel. We can spin the kaleidoscope.
And knowledge is the exit strategy.
It is. When Grace connects to the great minds in her books or the living tapestry of Mobius, she realizes she isn't isolated, and isolation is the primary weapon of the abuser. Isolation is how Trunchbull wins. Connection to ideas, to physics, to a higher reality, that's how we win.
It's heavy stuff, but it's also incredibly hopeful. It suggests that even in Minus Land, even when you're shrunk down and trapped, there's a way out.
There's always a way out. You just have to learn how to turn the locks of your own mind.
Okay, before we wrap this up, I want to leave you with one final thought that's been stuck in my head. We talked about 87 mentioning that events are scripted.
The simulation theory angle, yeah. It's not avoidable in this text.
Right. So if trauma forces us to build new mental worlds to survive, like Grace did, and if history itself is just a script, is our current reality just another living archive that we just haven't figured out how to navigate yet? Are we all just sitting in a room waiting for the moment we realize the walls are actually made of math?
That is the question. And if this text is right, the answer might be hiding in that old paperback of Matilda sitting on your shelf.
Okay.
We just need to learn how to read the code.
We will read it again with fresh eyes.